recording. So after the preliminary analysis, like by looking at the problem roughly, then you propose the alternative solutions. Then we prioritize the information systems need, right? And with that, we doing a study called feasibility study. So feasibility study is carried out under like 4 phases, or like 4 ways, right? Which are not, which should not happen one after the other. Like there are 4 different types of feasibility studies that we can do, and there are many other feasibility studies that they can do. But these are the major parts. Like we did the technical feasibility to search whether they are technically qualified, or like to do the technical assessment of a particular company or in a client, whether they are achievable with the requirement that they are asked with. Then we did the economical feasibility to see whether they are financially strength, and then we did the operational feasibility to take an idea whether they are okay with the operational side, and the organizational feasibility as well to get to know how the organization respond to this particular system, right? Or like the proposing one. Then once the feasibility study is done, the client will have a better idea about what he is going to do, and how much it will cost, and what is the return that he is going to get. So then he will decide to carry out the project, like to have a computerized system for him. Or sometimes he can decide whether to discontinue it, like due to the feasibility study, because it shows whether they are capable or not, right? So then what we have done is we have to do, like we have to analyze the system thoroughly. Then after, still we are in the very first phase, identifying the requirement, then the doing the analysis part. And to do the analysis, like why we are doing the analysis is to identify what are the requirements that this system, or like what are the requirements that the client is expecting from the system, or in other words, what are the things that system is going to give to the client, right? So which we call the functional requirements, right? And there is non-functional requirement as well. So we talk about that these requirements can be divided into 2 parts, which is called the functional and non-functional. And later we talk that they will be divided into 2 parts further, which is the essential one, or the essential one, and the nice to have one, right? Which is not essential, right? So I think you have drawn the picture of how the requirements are divided into 2 parts, and how those 2 parts are divided further into 2 parts, which is called compulsory and nice to have, right? Or like essential and nice to have. So then we discussed we need to use these shall and should words to identify what are the essential ones and the nice to have ones when it comes to the requirements. So we discuss regarding the essential requirements. It should be started from shall be able to word, or like from shall. If it is nice to have one, it should start with a should, right? So likewise, so shall indicates the requirement, or the essential requirement, and should will have nice to have ones. So same goes with the non-functional requirements. So in non-functional requirements, there are compulsory ones and nice to have ones. So the same category, the same theory that they use, shall for essential ones, and the should be for nice to have ones, right? So we have done some past paper questions regarding this last time. And today we are going to move to discuss about the analytical tools. So still we are in the phase of analyzing things, right? Now this analyzing is critical because analyzing will specify you, or like specify the project team what they should done in the future, right? Or how they should perform in the future, right? So now one of the like we use many different analytical tools in here. Like one of the tool is called the business activity modeling. So which we use to determine what is going to be the boundary of the system, and which activities are going to be inside and which are not, right? So it is a way of understanding the system and see what activity is happening within and outside the system. So here the example that they have taken is example situation of registering a student for a particular system. So like there are many different approaches that they have taken here, right? So if you look into this picture, you can see they have started from many different places, right? Or like from many different situations, right? So here they have started from this particular place saying receive student information inquiry. That is one way of starting what is going on in the system. So it will receive the student information inquiry and then send inquiry to the vice principal, and then check student register, then gather the data information from to sample form, and likewise it will continue. So it is a one way of starting. And this is another way of starting: receive admission application, right? So then check admission validity, then it is being registered, right? So likewise there are two. Right, so now when it leads to this particular place, which is the common place, and it gives you two separate ways that the things can continue. One is this particular, yeah, people, sorry, I was disconnected due to the communication problem. All right, can you confirm whether you can hear me clearly? All right, great. So as we discussed, like the business activity model can be started by several different points. So one place is here, the second place is here, that they have started regarding one business activity. And once they receive the inquiry, right? So like regarding this particular example, what I'm talking is receiving the student information inquiry, then send inquiry to the vice principal, then check the student status. Likewise, from the other path, it comes to the same place, right? So then gather data to sample form, fill a form from class teacher, fill a form teacher in charge discipline. So likewise, it will continue what happens, right? Then it will come to a place right over here. So the previous one, check student register, or the this particular one is dividing the path for different, like two different ways. Right, check student file, you can straight away go there and check. Yeah, otherwise like we won't be able to track what is actually happening inside the system, right? And if you got a student file inside the school, so it's going to check straight away. Otherwise we have to come this long way to get it stretched, or to get it checked, right? So after that what they're doing is like fill information form, print information form, and check by vice principal cap, yeah, and student signatures and principal signatures. So it is a simple way of laying what are the activities happen inside the system. So per activity by activity we will be able to draw something like this, right? But in our syllabus, not actually the syllabus, in the paper, they haven't test about this. They only test about the next components that we are going to learn is like the DFD and the level 1 DFD, the context diagram and the DFDs. So once we figure out what is happening with a particular activity, or like with some activities, so we can determine what are the things or what are the activities which are going to be inside that system, right? So it's going to be a very big help for you to identify what is the boundary, and what is inside the system and what is outside the system. So BAM will basically use to identify the boundary of the system, right? මේක දැන් අඳින විදිහ ගැන වරි වෙන්න එපා. ඒක ගැන අපිට දැන්ම ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. එහෙම එකක් අහලම නැහැ මේ විභාග ඉතිහාසයට. So just get the idea. This is what you call business activity model. Okay, is it clear, people? You got any questions you can ask? Yeah, Nirmana, මොන ටිකද පුතේ ඔයාලා ක්ලියර් කරගන්න ඕනේ? right.
සර් පොඩ මුලින් අයිඩි කියන්නකෝ chart එක.
ඉන්පොඩ්ඩක්. right. නිර්මාණ මෙතන පුතේ ඔයා සරලව තේරුම් ගන්න ඕන දේ මෙතනදි සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ සිස්ටම් එකක තියෙන ඇක්ටිවිටීස් ක්‍රියාකාරකම් මොනවාද කියලා අපි මේ විදිහට එකින් එකට ලිස්ට් කරගන්නවා. එතකොට ලිස්ට් කරගෙන ඒක සමහර ලාවට එක يعني ඒ ඇක්ටිවිටි එකක් දැන් මෙතන තියෙන්නේ මේ ළමයෙක්ගේ ඇප්ලිකේෂන් එකකට අදාළව කරන ඇක්ටිවිටි එකක්. ඒකට ඇක්ටිවිටි එක ස්ටාර්ට් කරන්න පුළුවන් ක්‍රමවේද කීපයක් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ කරලා කොහොම හරි ඒ process එකේ ඇක්ටිවිටි එකට අදාළව තියෙන දේ ඉවර කරන විදිහට අපි flow එකක් හදා ගන්නවා. right? එතකොට මේ ඇක්ටිවිටි එක අපි oval shape එකක් ඇතුලේ ලියලා ඊතල වලින් කනෙක්ට් කරලා එකකට පස්සේ එකක් සිද්ධ වෙන විදිහට එහෙම flow එක හදා ගන්නවා. මේ flow එක හදාගෙන ඉවර වුණායින් පස්සේ අපි බලනවා මේ අපි හිතලා බලන නැත්නම් අපි සහභාගී වෙන අපි හදන්න හදන සිස්ටම් එක ඇතුලේ මේ ඇක්ටිවිටීස් වලින් මේ අපි අඳගත් ඇක්ටිවිටීස් වලින් මොනවාද සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ කියන එක. ඒක තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ ඔය මේ ලයින් එකකින් වටේ ඇදලා වෙන් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. right? අපි ඔකට කියනවා සිස්ටම් එකේ බවුන්ඩරි එක ඩිටර්මයින් කරගන්නවා කියලා. right? එතකොට අපිට අයිඩියා එකක් එනවා එලියෙන් මේ සිස්ටම් එකත් එක්ක සම්බන්ධ වෙන්නේ මොන වගේ ඇක්ටිවිටීස්ද මොන වගේ අයද සහ සිස්ටම් එක ඇතුලේදී අපිට දකින්න හම්බෙන ඇක්ටිවිටීස් මොනවද ඒවට ඉන්වෝල්ව් වෙන්නේ කවුද කියලා. ක්ලියර්ද නිර්මාණ? right, so you have to remember why this BAM is modeled to determine the system boundary basically majorly, right? And the most important thing means like according to our syllabus and the exam is the DFM, data flow modeling. Now when it comes to the data flow modeling, they use a diagram called data flow diagram, which is going to be your exam question, right? To identify how the data is flow to the system and from the system in this particular scenario, right? එතකොට මේක අඳිනකොට මේ සිස්ටම් අපි DFD එක data flow diagram එක අඳිනකොට we draw two set of data flow diagrams. One data flow diagram is to illustrate what's happened with the existing situation, right? Or the existing system. දැනට තියෙන තත්ත්වය දැනට තියෙන පද්ධතියත් එක්ක මොකද වෙන්නේ කියලා පෙන්නනවා එක data flow diagram set එකක් ඇදලා. මම data flow diagram set එකක් කියලා කියන්නේ this is a set of diagrams, right? ඒක කොහොමද එන්නේ කියන එක දැන් ඉස්සරහට ඔයගලන්ට clear වෙයි, right? Then after we are going to draw another set of data flow diagrams to the proposed system. එහෙනම් දැන් තියෙන situation එක මොන වගේද කියලා පෙන්නලා ඉවරනයින් පස්සේ අපි propose කරන system එකක් මොන විදිහටද වෙන්නේ කියන එක මේ data flow diagram එකෙන් අපි client illustrate කරනවා, right? So when you are drawing the DFD, there are certain components that you need to remember and you need to learn, which we are going to do at the end of the tute. ඔබම tute එක අන්තිමටම දාලා ඇතේ අලුතෙන් නෙවෙයි අන්තිමට දාලා තියෙනවා කොළ දෙක තුනක් DFD step by step කියලා, right? අපි එතනට ආවෙන් පස්සේ මේක ගැන විස්තරාත්මකව කතා කරනවා. So I'm not going to talk what does it mean by the external entities, data flows and processes and data stores. ඕවා කියන්නේ මොනවද කියලා කතා කරන්න යන්නේ නෑ මම මේ moment එකේ, right? So මම මේ DFD කියන part එක අගට අපි ඕක ඇඳ practice කර කතා කරනවා. එතනදී කතා බහ කරන්න මොනවාද මේ data flow diagram එක කියලා කියන්නේ, context diagram කියන්නේ, and what is why we need the document flow diagram, right? And what is level 1 and lower level DFDs, and what is an EPD, right? So මම කියවනේ අර අපි existing system එකටයි proposed system එකටයි දෙකටම data flow අඳින්න ඕනේ කියලා කියන්නේ data flow diagram අඳින්න ඕනේ කියලා right දැන් අපි existing system එකට data flow diagram එක ඇඳන් පස්සේ when we are trying to illustrate the proposed system අපි යෝජනා කරන එහෙම නැත්නම් දැන් client එක අපි කතා බහ කරලා මේ එකඟ වෙලා තියෙන system එක ගැන අපි විස්තර කරනකොට we are going to do two types of diagram what one is called logical data structure LDS right or logical data structure එකයි data flow diagram වල logical data modeling කියන part එකයි right අපි මෙතනදී අපි කරන්නේ data physical data flow modeling එක අපි propose කරන එකේදී අපි කරනවා logical data flow modeling right so ඒ කියන්නේ සරලව අපි කතා කරොත් අපි existing system එකේ system එකට එන data මොනවද එළියේ ඉඳලා system එකෙන් එළියට ගන්න data මොනවද කියලා diagram set එකක් create කරනවා then after based on that diagrams we create the proposing systems DFD අපි ඉස්සරහට හදන්න ඉන්න system එක මොන වගේද වෙන්නේ කියලා illustrate කරන data flow diagram set එකක් වෙනම හදනවා plus we are going to create something called LDS logical data flow logical data structure now logical data structure means how the database is going to handle inside this system මොකද system එකක් කියලා කියන්නේ අපිට interact වෙන්න user interact වෙන්න තියෙන interfaces ටිකයි ඒ software එකයි and the other important part is where the data are being stored කොතනද data ටික store කරලා තියාගන්න කියන එක so for that we need a logical data structure in other words a database structure right so this is what you call a logical data structure this kind of diagram right එතකොට දැන් මෙතනදී මේ අපේ syllabus එකේ හැටියට අපි LDS එක මේ විදිහට මේ diagram එකෙන් පෙන්නුවට අපි ඇත්තටම LDS එක specify කරගන්නකොට අපේ 9th lesson එකේ අපි ඉගෙන ගන්නවා 9th නෙවෙයි 8th lesson එකේ අපි ඉගෙන ගන්නවා ඊළඟට තියෙන lesson එක database එකක් කොහොමද හදන්නේ කියන එක. එතනදී අපි කතා කරනවා මේක මීටත් වඩා descriptively database structure එකක් අපි හදාගන්නේ මොන විදිහටද කියන එක දැන්. උදාහරණයක් තත්පරයක් දෙන්න. Right, so you should basically have that picture. So in the way of designing the LDS, we are talking about it in the next lesson, right? මම මෙතනදී ඒක ලොකුවට විස්තර කරන්න යන්නේ නැහැ. මේ entities කියන්නේ මොනවාද, relationships කියන්නේ මොනවාද, degree of relationships කියන්නේ මොනවාද, ඔය සම්පූර්ණ කියන්නේ මෙතන මේ පෙන්නලා තියෙන මේ කරුණු ටික ගැන තමයි අපි ඊළඟ lesson එක fully කතා කරන්නේ. So I'm not going to go thorough explaining inside here, but you need to have the idea we are creating the software plus the database, right, for the proposing system, right? And that is what happens when you are doing the data flow modeling, right? So first you are doing a data flow modeling for the existing system. දැනට තියෙන system එකට මොන වගේද කියලා ඇඳලා පෙන්නනවා. And then you show what happens in the proposed system. අපි propose කරන system එකේ මොන විදිහටද data flow එක වෙන්නේ කියලා ඇඳලා පෙන්නනවා. ඒ දෙකම අපි කතා කරන ඒ දෙකම කියන්නේ ඒ දෙකම එකයි. පාවිච්චි කරන situations දෙක වෙනස් එච්චරයි. ඒ නිසා data flow modeling කරන්නේ කොහොමද කියන එක ගැන අපි lesson එක අගට කතා කරනවා. data structure එක create කරගන්න එක logical data structure එකේ LDS එක create කරගන්න එක ගැන අපි next lesson එකේදී තමයි thoroughly kata karana, right? So for the moment, what is the idea that you need to have is we create a data flow modeling for an existing system. We create a data flow modeling for the proposed system with a logical data structure. In other words, with the data structure, or like with the structure of the database. Clear the කියපු point එක clear? Everyone? Right, great. Okay. Now, this BSO is also a part of the designing, right? When we design the system, or like in the planning the system, we are going to propose what kind of a cost that this software layout or the system layout going to get to the client, and what are the features of it, and what is the arrangement of the software and hardware things. That is what you call business system options. Now, we are not just creating one particular BSO to a project. We are proposing like many different BSO for a particular project, right? So in that BSOs, in all the BSOs, minimum requirement should be satisfied. දැන් අපි හදන්න student information system එකක් නම් ඒ student information system එකට අවශ්‍ය minimum requirements මේ හැම BSO එකකම satisfy වෙලා තියෙන්න ඕනේ, right? එතකොට අපි සරලව ගත්තොත් අපි හදන්න ඉන්න student information system එකේ අපිට ඕනේ computer එකකුයි we need an internet connection. ඔය දෙක විතරයි නම් ඕනේ. මේ අපි දෙන හැම BSO එකකම computer and internet connection is a compulsory, right? So additional facilities can be there, and it will incur the cost for the client. So he should be aware about those kind of costs if he is choosing that particular kind, right? So here I have shown you several BSOs. So it is serving for the same purpose, but with increasing benefits, right? So here what they have said is the first BSO they are proposing with a server machine and 4 machines, or which is for the administrative assistants, vice principal, principal, and class teacher, right? So the performance of that computer is given, how a particular system is cost is given, so they can have the idea how much that we are going to spend on this. And this is the BSO2. So it proposed a server with a database and the other 4 computers. So those specifications are given and the cost is given, computer performance are given, right? So the one who is looking to this particular system will think about it with these facts. And here they have proposed a multi-user management information system kind of a thing. So they have a server and an ISP. So through ISP, remote clients can be connected, as well as through the network, this administrative assistant, class teacher, vice principal, and principal can be connected, right? So the features of the computer and the cost of those are proposed and said this much of things that you are going to lose, and this is the gain that you are going to take. So likewise, there are 4 different types of BSOs are given. So here at the end, so they will select a BSO. So that BSO is taken, the first BSO was taken. The justification means it satisfies all the essential requirements that the system needs and minimum costs, and agree with the client. So project team then after will only think about this BSO when the system is implemented. Right. So this is what we call logical data flow modeling. So we talk about this, right? Logical data flow modeling කරනකොට අපි consider කරන්න ඕන දේවල් ටිකක් තියෙනවා. So when we get on to that section at the last of the lesson, I'll tell you, right? Before that, I'm going to finish up the other things, right? So here they have talked about physical design of database, which we are going to talk about in next lesson. So you will see there is a component called entity. Later it will become the table name, and there is a component called attribute. Later it will become the fields, and there are a component called this instance of an entity, which is taken as the record of a table, and unique attributes. So that means we can distinguish those things from each other. So it is taken as the primary key. One of them are being taken as the primary key. Normalization, we talk about it very in detail when it comes to the 9th lesson. So I'm not going to touch the particular thing in here. So as I told you, you should remember what happens when logical data flow modeling and physical data flow modeling takes place, right? And here at the end, it has a very important thing, maintaining a data dictionary. Now, data dictionary means, now, if we take the term dictionary, it is a book which has words which is describing about the words. So words described by a word. So if you take distinguish the word, it will describe by some other words in the when it comes to the normal dictionary. So when it comes to the data dictionary, now it is data is explaining about the other data, right? Or like data explaining about the data, right? So we short form call them metadata, right? So those metadata will be used heavily for any person who is taking care of the system, like after a long time, like after several amount of period, right? මොකද අපි create කරන project එකේ අපි දිගටම රැඳිලා ඉන්නේ. Even for ourselves, some things are forgotten or like having a shadow area, or like likewise, right? So because of that, data dictionary is critical because it will explain what are these data, right? And the last one says contains the actual database description used by the database management systems, right? So then after the data base description, which we are going to create using the DBMS, database management system, which is going to be like descriptive in any way when they want. ඒගොල්ලන්ට අවශ්‍ය වෙලාවකට මේ මොකක්ද කියලා description එක බලලා තේරුම් ගන්න පුළුවන්. Right? Yeah. So with that, the designing phase is done, right? So what we have done is we have we have done the analysis in two different ways. One is like in a preliminary manner, in a rough manner, and the second way is like doing it on the more detailed manner, right? So, however, these things will help us to move to the next phase, which is called the development and test of the system. And preliminary investigation making, we got the idea, the rough idea, and feasibility study. We can give the idea to the client, right? Then we have to do a thorough analysis if the client allows us to do so. So when it comes to the analytical tools, as we talked, like business and activity modeling, data flow diagrams, logical data structures, which is therefore database related things, right? So those kind of things happen. Then we convert those things into the physical database, right? අපි කියන්නේ LDS එක හදලා LDS එකෙන් physical database එක වෙන්නේ මොන වගේද කියලා design කරගන්න. Right? So with those things, we come to the phase which we call development, or we call this implementation. Right? So to develop, we are going to do two different kind of developments. One is developing the system using a suitable programming language, right? And you have the ability, or you have the liberty to use a confident programming language as per to your expertise, right? But in sometimes the client will ask to perform this particular development using this particular language, right? So anyhow, we have to develop the system using a proper programming language, and we are informing that to the client, but the major handling part is there in the with the client. I'm sorry, not with the client. The major handling part is with the program, right? Because he's the one who knows what is the programming language and how capable it is, right? As well as they choose like good or relevant database management system, like Microsoft Access, like MySQL, right? Like Oracle. There are several types of database applications. So we choose one of them to create the particular database, and before that we are going to like introduce or like inform the programming language and the what we call the database management system to the client, and by saying like these are the languages and the DBMS that we are going to use, right? So about the programming, we are going to learn about in the 9th lesson, which is the Python. And regarding the database management system, we are going to learn about by next lesson, right? So once you are done with the development, then you are there to do the testing. Now, testing is critical because if we like skip the testing phase, there will be huge errors within a system. So system නිකම්ම client දෙනවා කියලා කියන්නේ කිසිසේත්ම තේරුමක් නැති වැඩක්. Right? මොකද we don't know what happens and we have no idea where it can go wrong. Right? So before we hand this over to the client, we should test this particular system. So in the software industry, we are not testing a system like at our will, right? So to do that, there are separate team which is called the QA engineering team, quality assurance engineering team, right? So quality assurers are there to create test cases. And over mobile phone එකක් ගන්න ගියාම you create your own test cases. What are the test cases? You power up the phone and see whether it is powering up or not. You press the keys and you touch the keys and do some works to recognize whether it is okay. Right? So you like if you have the chance to insert a mobile data SIM or the telephone SIM, the SIM card will be inserted and try to make a call to see whether it is connected clearly or not. Right? So anyway, QA engineer's responsibility is to create these test cases. So they will create the test cases and hand it over to the relevant people to do the testing. So when we are doing the testing, there are two techniques that we use to do this testing thing, right? So the techniques are white box testing and the black box testing. So white box testing means you can see the system like it is put inside a glass box, and we can give the inputs and we can see what happens to the inputs during the inside the system, and we can see what is happening or like what is coming out as the output. All right, so that is what we call white box testing. We can see what happens inside the system, right? Like when it comes to the white box testing, the programmers are the one who best for this particular thing, because they are the people who have the idea about the software part, right? So they checked it and see for any bugs inside it, right? So there is another technique called black box testing. Then අපි mobile phone එක මෙලදී ගන්න කියම අපි කරන්නේ ගොඩක් කරලා black box testing එක, because we can't see the system, we don't have the idea about how it happens, right? So we know if several inputs are given, this particular thing should be the output that you are going to get, right? ඒක හරියට calculator එකක් check කරනකොට අපි ඔක් කරනවා නේද? ඉලක්කම් දෙකක් දීලා එකතු කරනවා. අපි දන්නවා 3යි 2යි එකතු කරාම 5 එන්න ඕනේ. So we press 3 and 2, 3 plus 2 and see whether we are getting a correct answer, right? ළමයි තප්පරයක් Right. So as I told you, the black box testing, it happens like we can't like we put the system inside the black box. අපිට black box එකක් ඇතුළට system එක දැම්මොත් system එක black box එක ඇතුළේ මොකද වෙන්නේ කියලා පේන්නේ නැහැ. So we can give the inputs and we can search for the correct outputs. අපි calculate අපි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට දේවල් test කරන්නේ black box testing method එකේ. If you are checking a calculator, we just give 3 plus 2 and see whether we are getting 5. So we know what are the inputs and we know the expected output. So according to that, we test it whether it is okay or not. Right? So those are two types of techniques that can be used to do the testing. And there are 4 types of testing. So the very first type is the unit testing. Unit testing එක හම්බෙන්නේ programmers වල. Right? So programmers will be asked to test their own unit or test their own program for bugs, right? For any errors, right? Bug එකක් කියලා any error. Right? එතකොට ඒක programmer කරනකොට programmer has the idea what is happening with the program or the system because he is the one who developed it, right? So they are doing a white box. They are using the white box technique. So they give their inputs, they see what happens inside the code, and they search for the correct output. So if it happens, so okay, testing is passed. If it is not, then we have to fix the bugs, right? So that is what we call unit testing. Unit taking unit taker. Programmer to do the okay. Then there is another test called integration testing. Integration testing means in a system there are several units that can integrate together and check for the errors. Right? There are bicycle එකක් system එකක් විදිහට කියලා අපි කතා කරන්නේ last week එකේ. අපි bicycle එක අරගත්තොත් paddles කියලා කියන්නේ, cog wheel එක කියලා කියන්නේ, tires කියලා කියන්නේ ඒක units වෙන වෙනම units. So ඒවා තනියෙන් check කරගන්න එක තමයි unit testing එක කියලා කියන්නේ. Integration testing means cog wheel එකයි chain එකයි පිටිපස්සේ රෝදෙයි ඒ ටික ඔක්කොම paddles ඔය ඔක්කොම කලෙක්ට් කරලා බලනවා paddles පාගනකොට paddle up කරනකොට පිටිපස්සේ රෝදේ කැරකෙනවාද. So there are several units which works together as an integration, right? So those kind of tests are also carried out. Then they are doing the system testing. So system testing means now units are being integrated. So integrated units will be like taken to a one point and giving the total output of the system. Bicycle උදාහරණෙම ගත්තොත් දැන් කලින් chain එකයි cog wheel එකයි නේද rear tire එකයි ඔය දේවල් ටික වෙන වෙනම try කරා test කරා ඊට පස්සේ ඒ ටික එකතු කරලා හරියට වැඩ කරනවද කියලා බලුවා ඒ කොටස විතරක් ඔය විදිහට ඔක්කොම ටික එකතු කරලා බලනවා total bicycle එකම හරියට වැඩ කරනවද කියලා which we call the system testing, right? And once they are done and once they are confident with the product that they have made, they are going to present the system to the client. Right? The client දෙන්න තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ මෙච්චර testing කරේ. දැන් client දීලා කියනවා you just go through this particular system and see or like and give us a feedback whether it is satisfied or not. Right? ඒක බොහොම critical testing part එකක්. The reason is up to that point until the client says okay, project team is in a very unstable position. The client will මේක නෙවෙයි මම පාවිච්චි කරේ මේක නෙවෙයි මට උමනා වෙලා තිබුණේ මෙන්න මේ වෙනස්කම් කරන්න ඕනේ කියලා. So you have to do it again and present it to right? But if he accepts it, then we can implement or deploy the particular system that we have used, that we have created, right? So two testing techniques and 4 types of tests are there. Okay, clear the method වෙනකම්? All right. How about others? Okay. Now, once the testing is done, then you are asked to deploy the system or implement the system to the client requirement, right? So when you are deploying it, again, there are 4 types of deployment patterns. You can use any one of those, but there are 4 types how to deploy it. So the first one is called the direct deployment. Now, direct deployment means we get rid of the existing system and we replace the new system to that particular place and ask the organization or to the particular person to run the particular system from that point onward, the new one. Advantage is we can experience the new system from the very first time, like from the very first beginning. But the problem is, if the new system fails, we don't have any backups regarding the old system, right? And the parallel deployment, this says you carry out the old system and the new system for a certain amount of period, right? Then once you are confident with the new system, so you can give up the old system, right? So let's take an example like placing a fingerprint machine to organization. It's a small system, fingerprint identification system. So when they need to apply the direct deployment, so far they have recorded their attendance in a book. So if it is direct deployment, they can say, okay, get rid of all the things, right? So then you just, we are going to just put a fingerprint machine here. So when you are arriving, put your finger and go to the working premises, right? So that is what you call direct deployment. Fingerprint attendance marker. In the parallel deployment, they have to do the both. They should place the fingerprint as well as they have to write it on the book, the arrival time and the ending time. So it has an advantage over direct deployment. If something goes wrong with the new system, then the old system is there to give a backup. But the disadvantage is your work or like your commitment regarding this system is going to be double. Right? It means you are going to do the same task twice. And fingerprint machine එකෙත් අපි fingerprint එක තියලා match කරගන්න ඕන. So parallel deployment. So ඒ විදිහට මාසයක් දෙකක් ගියාම ඉමින් සැරේ old system එක අයින් කරලා දාන්න පුළුවන් new system එක විතරක් continue කරන්න. Right, so the next one is the pace deployment. Then pace වලට පස්සේ අපි කතා කරනවා pilot deployment කියලා. ගොඩාක් අය ওই දෙක පටල ගන්නවා. Right? So have it clearly. දැන් මේ පින්තූර දෙකනොත් ඔයගලන්ට තේරෙනවා. pace deployment එකේ කරන්නේ they divide their project. I don't know whether it is physically or logically. They divide their project into phases. Right? Then අපි student information system එකම ගමුකෝ. student information system එක ගත්තම අපි කියනවා right මේකේ තියෙනවා student registration phase එකක් නැත්නම් student detail registration phase එකක් teacher maintenance process එකක් or phase එකක් then administrative panel or like the resources වලට අදාළව phase එක. ඒ කොටස් තුන තමයි system එකේ තියෙන්නේ. Students again, teachers again, resources again. So in the pace deployment, what they are doing is they just take one particular pace from it, right? So that particular pace is applied to the entire organization, and the rest of the system is going to be using the old system. Right? අලුත් system එක පොඩි කොටසක් විතරයි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. සම්පූර්ණ system එකම පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ නැහැ. අලුත් එකෙන් කොටසක් දාගෙන පරණ එකේ ඉතිරි ටිකත් එක්ක දුවනවා. ඊට පස්සේ ටික ගානක් ගිහලා ආයෙ අලුත් එකෙන් දෙවෙනි කොටසක් දාගෙන පරණ එකේ ඉතිරි ටිකත් එක්ක දුවනවා. Right? So likewise, when the time is going, like when they apply pace by pace, after a certain amount of period, the entire system will be placed into the organization or the client's requirement position. Right? So අමතක කරගන්න එපා old system එකේ පොඩි කැලලක් ගැලවෙනවා ඒකට new system එකකින් කැලලක් එකතු කරනවා. Right? ඒක තමයි අපි pace deployment කියලා කියන්නේ. So pace by pace. And මේකේ තියෙන advantage එක මොකද්ද? Like when this is known by the lower level management, they can train the upper level management, right? Because know about the system and they need to know slowly about the system, right? And disadvantage again are pace එකකට අදාළව මොකක් හරි ගැටලුවක් වුණොත් අපිට old system එක එතන නැති වෙනවා. මොකද අපි old system එකේ පොඩි කොටසක් ගලවලා තමයි ඒකට new system කොටසක් ඇතුල් කරන්නේ. Right? So that is what you call the pace deployment. And finally, the pilot deployment. And why we call that name to them is like ඔයගොල්ලෝ අහලා තියෙනවනේ නියම ව්‍යාපෘති යනවා කියලා pilot projects යනවා කියලා. So same concepts happens here. Right? So what we are doing is this school is having two sections, like the primary section and the secondary section. So we choose, the one who is going to implement is choose which particular section that is going to be considered as the pilot. So එතනදි කරන්නේ section එකෙන් එක කොටසක් අරගෙන ඒගොල්ලන්ව දාලා බලනවා right මේක ඕකේද ඊට පස්සේ total system එකම ගේන්න පුළුවන්. So in pilot deployment, they just provide you the entire thing or the entire system, but only to the selected group in your organization, right? So, like I said, primary is having the new system, secondary is going with the old system. So once primary is done and taking feedback, okay, this is okay, now we are confident with this, then they are going to apply the entire system to the entire organization, right? Okay. And advantages, disadvantages. Now, in the advantages point of view, like it saves the time for training, right? Because there are people who are doing the same, and we can apply it to the people who are not having the practice. You can primary section in a teacher's level. මුලින් පුරුදු වෙනවනේ pilot project එකේ හැටියට. දැන් අපි ගත්ත උදාහරණයක් ගත්තොත් pilot project එකේ හැටියට it's a primary teacher who are going to experience this. So those primary teachers can be used to train the people or the teachers who are not having the experience with the system. මොකද secondary එකේ දාන්න නැහැ කියලා කියන්නේ secondary එකේ secondary school එකේ අයට ඕක අලුත් අත්දැකීම. Right? So that is going to be the advantage. Okay, the very last part of the SDLC, which is called the maintenance. So maintenance can happen due to error, which we didn't capture through the testing methods, right? And if a new technology introduced, right? හිතන්නකෝ fingerprint එක වෙනුවට voice recognition technology එකක් එනවා attendance mark කරගන්න. So they will ask you to change it, right? So if they said something like that, it belongs to the maintenance stuff, because now system has already deployed now. දාලා ඉවරයි system එක. So whatever the things that they are requesting later, it's going to be under the maintenance phase. Right, from that SDLC stops. තේරුණාද? Yes, people, confirm. Okay. Right. Now let's get into the DFD part, data flow diagram part. Right. Okay. So to do that, you need to turn to the back of your tube. Back means like the very last pages of your tube. Yeah. Right. So let me take your whiteboard. Right. Let me expand this. Right. Is there anyone who has not the DFD step-by-step part at your tubes? If anyone who does not have it, just let me know. Right. Make respond hate this. Right. Good. Now, when you are drawing the data flow diagram, right? The data flow diagram is just talking about how the data is flown inside a computer or like inside a system, right? So there are several ways, like several ways means like several approaches for the this particular diagram. But when you know the situation, when you know what happens really, so it's going to be a piece of cake, right? So the first thing first, what you need to know is like for a system, there are people, organization who are involved in staying outside the system, right? So that entity is indicated by a oval, right? And inside an entity, we can write only a singular noun, right? So if you want, you can write student, right? And another entity called teacher, right? So likewise, you have to figure out what is the system and who are interacting with it, right? And that is what you call entity. And the system, we are going to indicate a system, a one particular rectangle, right? So inside that rectangle, we are going to write the name of the system. Name of the system, right? So you can find the name of the system easily in a given scenario, right? Only thing, you have to read the particular sentences like 4 to 5 times to complete the diagram, right? So, and what I'm saying now is the most important thing. When you are writing a data, the data which is flowing between an entity and the this particular system should indicate what is the data that is going to copy, right? So from, let's say, from student, you are given the answer sheet. So answer sheet is a document. So this, for this particular thing, you can like when you are sending the things, you can send it as the way you want. But when you are working with the context diagram, it should be on this particular manner. From particular entity to the system, it is the straight line. So at the middle of this straight line, you have to say what you are being like exchanging or like sending from one place to another. In case if you need to flow in between entity and another entity, you are going to use the dotted lines. Right? So, right, let's say it's going to be about the grade. Just a second, people. Jinani, we use dotted lines to indicate the data flow from one particular entity to another particular entity directly. Right now, students are given the assignment to the teacher. Just a second, people. I need to fix the power line. Right, so let's say student is given the assignment from a teacher. So if student is an entity as well as the teacher, so this is the way it's going to illustrate. So from entity to system, it's a straight line, and from entity to entity, it's a dotted line. Right? So these are called entity. Actually, the correct name is external entity. Right, so this is what we call the data, right? And this is what we call the data flow. Right, are you getting this? So there will be one particular system like in Square. So all you have to do like defining what are the data that they are going to flow into the system and out of the system. And you can use dotted lines in between two entities. Right, මේ කියපු දේ clearද? Right. Okay, then let's sneak into our document at the back of the tut, right? So DFD step by step. This is the one I was talking about. So if you want to repeat an entity, we use an angle line inside the oval, right? Then හිතන්නකො teacher duplicate කරගන්න මෙතන ඊට මදි මම teacher duplicate කරගන්නවා තව තැනක. So I need an angle line like this. And when I'm duplicating an entity, every entity should have that line to indicate this is being duplicated. So this can be data 3, right? So likewise, and this process and data store, I'll come to those things, and data flow I have shown it. In here it's better you add a dotted line and the example that we were talking about, this particular thing. මෙන්න මේ ටික ඇඳ ගන්න එතනට. Right, take a minute and draw this. Right, one is done. How about others? තමයි මේවා ඒක වචනෙන් ලියා ගන්න. Student, teacher, Okay, how about others? Right, දෙන්නෙක් ඉවරයි අනිත් අය. අනිත් අය ඉක්මන් කරන්න. Right, okay, 3 are done. Another 3 to go. Yes, Dilsara, Nirmana, Kushani, how about you? You all, are you done with the diagram? Okay, right, all right. Okay, now in the next page you have a case study, right? හරි, විනාඩියක් අරගෙන මේ case study එක කියව ගන්නටක් කාලා. Only this paragraph, like starting from here to here. Right, done. What's happened here? Hold on. ළමයි තප්පරයක් ඉන්න. Right, so this is your case study. Right, so here what you are going to determine first is, when you are given this kind of a case study, first you have to identify what is the system and what are the external entities that they are going to involve with. Right, then system එකක් කියනකොට හොඳට ඔළුවට දාගන්න, they are not just talking about like they are not only talking about a computerized system. Then අපි system කිව්වම we should be able to draw a diagram for an existing system as well as a proposed system. The existing system එක manual system එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Right, so අපි මුලින් අඳුන ගන්න ඕනේ අපි වැඩ කරන්නේ manual system එකක්ද computerized system එකක් එක්කද කියන එක. Then we have to draw the diagram according to that, because if it is a computerized system, anyone who is interacted with a system is going to be an external entity. If it is a manual system, there can be people who are inside the system as well as outside the system. ඔයගොල්ලෝ සුපර්මාකට් එක ගත්තොත් සිස්ටම් එකක් විදිහට සුපර්මාකට් එකේ බිල් එක ඔයගලන්ට ලියලා දෙන්නේ අතින් නම්. ඒක මැනුවල් සිස්ටම් එකක්. ඒතර මැනුවල් සිස්ටම් එකේ කොටසක් තමයි බිල් එක ලියන කෙනා. right, customer කියලා කියන්නේ ඒ මැනුවල් සිස්ටම් එකට එක්ස්ටර්නල් එන්ටිටි එකක්. එයා තමයි ඉන්ටරැක්ට් වෙන්නේ ඒත් එක්ක. right, ඒතර බිල් එක හැදෙන එක, ඊළඟට goods ටික එකතු කරගන්න එක, ඒවා සිස්ටම් එක ඇතුලේ සිද්ධ වෙන දේවල්. If you think about the same system with a computer system, bill එක generate කරන කෙනා cashier පවා එතනදී external entity එකක්. මොකද computerized system එක තමයි system එක. Right, first you have to understand that. Now in here, it says, suppose you are given the details of goods order system that allows people to shop from home. When a customer receives the catalog and wants to buy something, they can telephone, fax, or email their order to the company. When the company gets the order, customer will receive an invoice which has the order details and delivery date and time. When the customer receives the goods with a delivery note, he or she send payment and receive a receipt for their payment. Now here, they haven't mentioned anything about computerized one. It's a company, and the customer can order the things from the company, like staying at home. How he or she is going to order is by calling or emailing or faxing the order, right? So company will create the order and send it to the customer, and will receive the payment. So that is the normal situation, or like normal description, right? In the scenario, according to the scenario. එතකොට ඔතනදී සිස්ටම් එක කියන්නේ කම්පැනි එක ඇතුලේ සිද්ධ වෙන ක්‍රියාවලියට. It is the system. It is the one who is taking the orders and managing the orders and sending the orders. Customer is the one who is involving or interacting with the system. ඔය කියපු දේ තේරුණාද? Right. How about others? Komi anitaya. People, did you got what I said?
සර් තව එකපාරක් විස්තර ගන්න පුළුවන්ද?
All right, හරි. නිර්මාණ මෙතනදී ඔයා අඳුන ගන්න ඕනේ සිස්ටම් එක පද්ධතිය කියලා කියන්නේ කවුද? ඒකත් එක්ක එලියෙන් ඉන්ටරැක්ට් වෙන්නේ කවුද? ඒ කියන්නේ එක්ස්ටර්නලි ඉන්ටරැක්ට් වෙන්නේ කවුද කියන එක. මම ඒකයි කිව්වේ අපිට සිස්ටම් එකක් කියලා කිව්වම නිතර මේක කම්පියුටරයිස් සිස්ටම් එකක් කියලා හිතන්න එපා. ඒක කම්පියුටරයිස් එකක් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්, මැනුවල් එකක් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. හැබැයි සිද්ධ වෙන්න ඕන දේ තමයි මේ සිස්ටම් එක කියන එකත් එක්ක සිස්ටම් එක කියලා කතා බහ වෙන තැන කොතනද? එයාට එලියෙන් ඉන්ටරැක්ට් වෙන්නේ කවුද කියන එක ෆිගර් අවුට් කරගන්න එක. right? ඒතර මේ සිනාරියෝ එකේ කියලා තියෙන්නේ goods order system එකක් තියෙනවා, customers වලට ගෙදර ඉඳන් order කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒගොල්ලෝ phone එකෙන් හරි email එකෙන් හරි fax එකෙන් හරි order එක යවනවා. යවුවම ඒගොල්ලන්ට invoice එකක් එනවා. මෙන්න මේවා තමයි ඔයාගේ order එක තියෙන්නේ. මෙන්න මේ දවසට මෙන්න මෙච්චර මුදලක් ගෙවලා ඔයාලට order එක collect කරගන්න පුළුවන්. ගෙදරට order එක deliver කරන්න. ඊට පස්සේ company එකට order එක හම්බුනාම company එක order එක හදලා send කරනවා. send කරන්නේ delivery note එකකුත් එක්ක. එතකොට delivery note එක ළඟට ගියාම delivery note එකයි invoice එකයි compare කරලා බලලා payment එක කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට පස්සේ ඒ කියන payment එකට අදාළව receipt එකක් හම්බ වෙනවා අදාළ customer ට. එතකොට ඔතනදී computerized system එකක් කියලා අපි කතා බහ කරන්නේ නැහැ කොහෙදවත්. right? මේක manual system එකක්. ඒතර manual system එකේදී ඔයා අඳුන ගන්න ඕනේ manual system එක යන්නේ කොහෙද? එයත් එක්ක externally interact වෙන්නේ කවුද? එක්ක පුද්ගලයෙක් එක්ක ඉන්ස්ටිටියුට් එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. right? ඒතර manual system එක සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ කියන්නේ මේ කියලා තියෙන සිනාරියෝ එකේ අදාළ කාර්ය අදාළ processes ටික ක්‍රියාවලි ටික සිද්ධ වෙන්න තැන තමයි අපි system එක කියලා හඳුනගන්නේ. ඒතර ක්‍රියාවලි මොනවාද සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ? එකක් order එකක් දෙනවා customer කෙනෙක්. ඊට පස්සේ order එක හම්බ වෙනවා company එකට. ඒගොල්ලෝ order එක prepare කරනවා. ඊට පස්සේ ඒගොල්ලෝ order එක customer ට යවනවා. ඒතර මේකේ system එකක් විදියට වැඩ කරන්නේ input එකක්, process එකක්, output එකක් තියෙන තැන. එතකොට input එකක්, process එකක්, output එකක් තියෙන තැන තමයි කවුද? company එක. company එකට order එක එනවා inputs ඒක සකස් කරනවා processing and it send an output. එතකොට අපි අඳුන ගන්න ඕනේ company එක තමයි ඔතනදී system එක වෙන්නේ, customer තමයි එළියේ ඉඳලා interact වෙන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ external entity එක වගේ වැඩ කරන්නේ කියලා. පැහැදිලිද?
ඔව් සර්.
right. අනිත් අය පැහැදිලිද? confirm කරන්න. all right. okay. දැන් task එක හරි ලේසි. දැන් තියෙන උගලන්න context diagram එක මේකට against අඳින එක. right? එක අඳිනකොට අර මම කියපු දේවල් ටික මතක තියාගන්න. system එක වෙන්නේ company එක ඇතුළ, එළියේ ඉඳලා interact වෙනවා customer. so we indicate the system from a square. දැන් system එකේ නම දීලා තියෙනවා මෙතන. ඔයගලන්ට හොයාගන්න පුළුවන් මේ goods order system. right? so we can write goods order system. right? දැන් කරන්නේ කොහොමද මේ වැඩේ සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ කියන එක ගැන කතා බහ කරන්නේ. පුතේ මට තප්පරයක් දෙන්න. right. so goods order system එකට it's allow people to shop from home when a customer receives the catalog. අන්න ඒක තමයි customer එක්ක interact වෙන පළවෙනි අවස්ථාව. customer receives the catalog. එතකොට external entity එක තමයි customer. ඒතර එයාට catalog එක හම්බ වෙනවා. so අපිට තියෙන catalog එක හම්බ වෙනවා කියන එක පෙන්වන්න. හොඳට මතක තියාගන්න. with the system, like in between system and the entities, they are passing only the data. එතකොට data එක තමයි ලියවෙන්න ඕනේ. අපි data එකක් හඳුන ගන්න පුළුවන් ක්‍රම තමයි document එකක් අපිට data එකක් කියලා ගන්න පුළුවන්. like catalogs, invoices, receipts, cash, right? or the payment, right? එහෙම ගන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම ගන්න බැරි දේවල් අපි data එකක් ආකාරයට සකස් කරලා ලියන්න ඕනේ මේක. දැන් උදාහරණයක් විදිහට order එක දෙන එක. order එකක් place කරන එක මේකේ ලියනකොට අපි place in the order කියලා ලියන්න බෑ අපිට. it's an activity. මේ data flow එකේ තියෙන්නේ data එකක්, right? So customer is receiving a catalog. Then after, customer will place an order. So order එක place කරනකොට customer good order system එකයි අතර හුවමාරු වෙන්නේ order details or details of the order. So that will be written like this: order details. Right? So customer receives the catalog. So order to the company. That is the second interaction. හරි. ඔය ඇඳපු දෙක තේරුණාද? Right. How about others? Right. Okay. Then it says when the company gets the order, customer will receive an invoice. And the third point. Customer will receive an invoice. Then order එක හම්බෙනවා කියන එක අපි already පෙන්නලා තියෙනවානේ order details system එක පැත්තට යනවා. So then customer will receive an invoice. දැන් මට මේක ටිකක් descriptively ඇඳ ගන්න ඕන නිසා මම customer කියන entity එක duplicate කරනවා. ඔයගලන්ගේ tute එකෙත් ඒක duplicate වෙලා ඇත්තේ. So it is the same entity, customer will receive an invoice. එතකොට මෙතනින් මෙතනට යන්නේ invoice. So then it says which has the order details and delivery date and time. එතකොට ඒක invoice එක ඇතුලේ තියෙන detail. ඒවා අපි වෙන වෙනම පෙන්වන්න යන්නේ. So invoice, it's a one single document. So we indicate invoice in between the line. Right? So this is called invoice. When the customer receives the goods with a delivery note, he or she send payment and receive the receipt for their payment. එතන දේවල් කීපයක් තියෙනවා. එකක් තමයි මෙන්න මේක. When customer receives the goods, then goods කියන එක goods කියලා කියන්නේ භාණ්ඩ කියන එක. ඒතර භාණ්ඩ කියන එක ලැබීම අපිට data එකක් flow වීමක් නෙවෙයි. So we are not going to indicate the goods receiving, like goods කියන එක data එකක් විදිහට අපි indicate කරන්නේ නැහැ. Goods details තියෙන තැනක් තියෙනවා. Goods details තියෙන තැන තමයි delivery note එක කියලා කියන්නේ. يعني බඩු ටික ගෙනත් දෙනකොට මොනවාද ගේන්නේ කියලා සඳහන් කරලා දෙන document එක. Right? So අපිට මෙතෙන්දී අල්ලගන්න තියෙන point එක තමයි customer receives the goods with a delivery note කියන එක. Right? So ඒක අපිට පෙන්වන්න පුළුවන්. There's a delivery note which received by the customer. ඊළඟට කියනවා she send the payment. Send the payment. ඒක එකක්. payment එක කරන එක. So then customer will pay. එතකොට payment එක කියන එක අපි සලකන්නේ document එකක් විදිහට. මොකද එතනදී මුදල් පාවිච්චි වෙන්න පුළුවන්, credit card details පාවිච්චි වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අන්තිමට කියලා තියෙනවා receive a receipt for the payment. ඒ කියන්නේ receipt එකක් හම්බ වෙනවා for the payment. හරි. මේ කරපු දේ පැහැදිලිද?
සර්
ඕ නිර්මාණ.
සර් ඔතන කස්ටමර්ස් අයගෙන් දෙන්නෙක් දාන්නේ එක මේකකින් බැරිද අපිට අඳින්න?
පුළුවන් no problem. එක මේකකින් අඳින්න පුළුවන්. මම මෙතන මේ මට ඉඩ මැනේජ් කරගන්න ඕන නිසා මම මෙහෙම ඇදලා තියෙනවා.
හරි සර්.
ඔයාට එකම එකකට ඔක්කොම ටික දාලා ඉවර කරන්න පුළුවන්. right. clear the හැමෝටම? right. හරි. දැන් ඔයගලගේ ටියුට් එකේ තියෙන එක බැලුවොත් ඕකට බොහොම සමාන විදිහට තමයි මම ඇඳලා ඇත්තේ. yes. එතන order details payment කියන එක වෙන වෙනම ඇඳලා තියෙනවා. but anyway ඔය flows ටිකම තමයි තියෙන්නේ. right. catalog details එනවා. ඊට පස්සේ order details customer දෙනවා. then invoice එකක් customer හම්බ වෙනවා. then delivery note එක හම්බ වෙනවා. payment එක කරනවා. receipt එකක් හම්බ වෙනවා. right. අපි ඕකට තමයි context diagram එක කියලා කියන්නේ. right. හරි. දැන් ඕගලන්ට මේකේ තියෙන knowledge එකත් එක්ක 2015 16 කියන අවුරුදු දෙකේ තියෙනවා last question එක. essay paper එකේ you can do that. right. එතකොට ඒක පොත තියන අය ගෙදරදී try කරාට කමක් නැහැ. මම ප්‍රශ්න දෙක දාන්නම් WhatsApp group එකට. ඒක අපි ලබන සතියේ කරලා තමයි මේකෙන් පහළ තියෙනවා level 1 DFD අඳිනවා කියලා එකක්. කියන්නේ ඊළඟ level එක කොහොමද ඇඳගන්නේ කියන එක. ඒක ගැන අපි සාකච්ඡා කරන්න යනවා. right. හරි. ඒක නිසා මම අදට මෙතනින් session එක නතර කරනවා. right. මේ ගැන පොඩ්ඩක් ආයි go through කරන්න. මේ විභාගෙදී ප්‍රශ්න එන තැන. right. මම ප්‍රශ්න දෙක WhatsApp group එකට දාන්නම් 2013 and 15 and 16. 15 and 16 දෙක. ගෙදරදී try කරාට කමක් නැහැ. right. දැන් වෙලාව තියෙනවනේ. ඉස්කෝලේත් නැහැනේ. so next week අපි ප්‍රශ්න දෙකම කතා කරලා තමයි level 1 පැත්තට යන්නේ. right. හරි. මම එහෙනම් අදට මෙතනින් session එක නතර කරනවා. WhatsApp group එකට මම එවන්නම් questions දෙක. right. okay. thank you very much then. I'll see you next week for the same time. right. okay people. ඉවරයි. right. okay Rayindi, thank you.